the careers are varied, so I think the audience will learn a lot. I'd like to start by passing the mic around the table and having each of our panelists introduce themselves. And perhaps you can give us a little bit of your background, where you went to school, what program you were in, and what you're doing now. So perhaps, Jesse, I can start with you.
Sure. My name is Jesse Wilkes, and I have a copywriter background and currently work as a creative director here at Courage, the advertising agency here in Toronto. A little bit of my background, I work with Gerardo. We've worked together for 13 or 14 years as a creative team. We went to Humber in Toronto, met there, and have worked together ever since at a variety of different agencies both here in Canada, Juniper Park and John Street, and also in the States at Matesa Coffer and VCCP in San Francisco, New York. And we are back in Toronto and yeah, love this business.
Okay.
Many feelings about it. So why don't I pass it to
Uh-huh.
Jasmine?
Hi everyone, my name's Jasmine. My pronouns are she, they. I'm a fairly recent graduate. I graduated from George Brown College, both in 2021 and 2023. I've done two programs there. Graduated from the graphic design program, which is an advanced diploma, and then did a 2 year, 2.5 year bridging program to their bachelor in brand design. So that's where I graduated in 2023. I'm currently working as a graphic designer for Isometric Studio, which is an architecture and graphic design studio based in New York. So I work entirely remotely. And yeah, that's kind of my professional background. I'll pass it
Okay.
over to Gabriel.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Gab. I'm from Montreal. I'm an animation director, and I just founded my animation studio back in the month of May. But I've been working in this field for 10 years now. So I graduated from Concordia University in film animation, and yeah, been living the animation life ever since.
Great. So interestingly, each of you has had a different academic background. Different, you've gone to different colleges, and I say that, but with the knowledge that Jesse and Gerardo were both at Humber. I'm wondering if you could fill in a little bit of the gaps. Why did you choose the program that you enrolled in, the college that you enrolled in, and what did you like most about that academic experience? We'll start with you, Gabrielle, and go in reverse order.
You know what? It was a big surprise and a big revelation for me when I discovered that you could study animation. I uh, I was studying photography and I was doing a lot of comic books. Back then, I had like a web comics that I did, and I was actually in a bar and someone told me, "Gosh, you should
Hmm.
study animation." And I was like, "That's a thing!" And I was actually studying at Concordia, and they have this amazing animation department that I didn't know of. So um, I think like the very next day I asked for a transfer and yeah, never looked back. It's been such a great journey. Not that I don't enjoy photography, but yeah, I found that my skill set was more suited for animation.
Like, what did you like most about that experience at Concordia in the animation program?
Well, you know what? They have a very traditional approach to most fine arts departments. So we really learn like the basics and the way like that the great masters of animation did animation back in the early 1900s. So we learned animation working on frame by frame techniques, drawing on paper, using 24 sheets of paper for every second of animation we wanted to create. So it was like a very unique experience because there's not a lot of schools that offer this type of traditional approach anymore.
Mhm.
But I feel that it's a type of knowledge that you can feel even when you use the modern techniques of animation. You can feel that different approach to animation, and there's something about some subtle things about like the weight of a character or the language of animation that you develop for yourself that has a specific signature to it. So I'm very, very happy that I learned these techniques.
And
Yeah.
you're very happy with Concordia?
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
Like they're really strong on uh I guess I could call it multidisciplinary project. So they really encourage us to get to know the students from other departments and develop projects that would be like not only speaking to the animation department, but collaborating with other students. Uh, Naturally, we worked a lot with the sound design
Hmm.
department, which was a natural collaboration opportunity. But yeah, they really encourage us to look outside of our field. And I feel that help us to define a style that is really ours, but also explore like a wider range of possibilities for a
Great.
medium.
Jasmine, can
Yeah,
you echo
yeah,
some of the
for sure.
sentiments and add to them from your
Yeah.
experience?
With me, I discovered design in high school, and similarly, I didn't know that being a designer or going into the creative industry was a thing. I'm Filipino, so I have the expectation and the kind of the stereotype that like Filipino daughters, they go into nursing. So that was originally my plan. And then I took a yearbook course in grade 11 and 12. And that's when my teacher was like, I think you would do really well in this. You have a lot of potential. Like, why don't you consider this? And it was an uphill battle for sure, just trying to get the approval from my parents
Mm.
and trying to advocate that this is something that I really want to do. Eventually I did kind of get the green light to and the support to pursue this. And that's when I did some research, applied to some universities and also some colleges. George Brown was not my initial first choice, but after visiting the campus and getting to see the work, I really fell in love with it. And yeah, then I got into the graphic design program. And did that for 3 years. Graduated during the pandemic, so there was a lot of uncertainty during that time, and I
Mhm.
wasn't sure if I wanted to um, try to find a job during that time or go back to school. And at that time, George Brown launched their first bachelor in design, so I was part of the guinea pig program of that and really fell in love with it and really had a great education. And I think with my time there, I connected a lot with the community, not only like the design community, but greater. That's where I kind of found creative futures and applied arts. And yeah, I think the education that I got there was really great. And you build a lot of
Mhm.
connections with your peers, but also with industry folks, because the faculty are people who work part-time in the school, but also
Yes.
full-time in
Mhm.
the industry. So I think that was a really great experience.
That was one of your key takeaways from that experience, the fact that you were able to
Yeah.
connect within. What campus were you at, given that the campus made
Waterfront.
waterfront?
Yeah, I think they moved to Waterfront in the past few years, but before that, I was at King Street,
Hmm.
King campus.
Yeah, very nice. Well, thank you. And Gerardo, going from one designer to another, tell us a bit about your journey to Humber, your reactions to the 4 years that you spent there, and whatnot.
Of course. I think like a lot of people in our industry, I stumbled on an accident. I've always liked design. I've always liked visual identity from high school. So I had a little portfolio. Actually went to Europe for a year and did communications. Um, and while I was in class, I kept realizing that, you know what, I really miss designing. I really miss making stuff. So I looked up different programs, and Humber advertising program came up. And I thought that was very interesting. And it was a 4-year program, so I could still get a degree, which was very important to my parents. So it's kind of a win-win. Actually, the whole thing happened pretty late. I was on a wait list because I applied maybe in May. And I just got very lucky to get it in. And I think, what I loved about the program is that I think it did a great job recreating the environment. Oh,
Here we're beside
Yeah.
each other.
yeah, we're beside each other.
Shoot.
Yeah, recreating the environment of what an ad agency kind of was like, because naturally different people started building teams together. So it kind of felt like a real agency. And then each project, you kind of need to one up each other and you wanted to have the best idea. So you get into, you get a real job and it still kind of carries the same principle. So that's what something I loved about it. But I think one important thing for me is that in 4 years of doing that program, we were tasked with different things like writing a brief, creating strategies. So we were able to touch different kind of parts of the business and deciding ultimately in your third year of what you want to focus on. So I think for me, it's like it was very important to learn the different parts of the business like that, even for a short time, because it really helped us understand different perspective when we're working with other people.
Yes, that's very true. I like, as I mentioned, I run the advertising and marketing communications program, and on our last year, we do a capstone where we work with an agency, their client, and we have teams of 5 that are emulating like the traditional departments within a
Mhm.
full service agency. So I understand what you're saying about the benefit of having that experience and how it prepares you.
Of course.
So building on that, your journey from school into industry, what was that like? What did each of you I graduated at
Yeah.
different times, different economic circumstances, and whatnot. But if you can describe the journey a little bit, like how you got into, your chosen
Hmm.
industry, the agency, or your first job.
Yeah, I think you want to tell a story. We actually had a quick, like during the time when we were looking for jobs, there was a trend of and it was kind of a thing for a while of like getting creative directors' attention in a very creative way was to get in, and I think Jesse did some crazy
If
stuff.
and now if someone did that to me, I would hate it. Like, I remember it was kind of thing like how
Yeah,
like
yeah.
there's a lot of
It was always a big story.
there's a lot of like, people sending a big foot and being like, now that I have my foot in the door, blah blah blah, here's my website or whatever. Like, there's a lot of like stunts and things like that. And I did pull a pretty good one in that I volunteered at it was an old award show called the Bessies. And I worked, I don't know how I don't even remember how I did this, but they were looking for volunteers this award show, and I volunteered, and the awards they gave out were gold jackets. And this was they no longer have this award show. This was when they did award shows. It was just for TV commercials. This was about 2012, and I somehow got to volunteer at the award show, and I just put my business card in the breast pocket of all the
Wow.
suits that they were giving out. And they were like these kind of like fun spray painted suits. And then the next day called all the agencies and be like, hey, check the breast pocket, da 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 da. So and eventually, and it worked. It actually worked. I got several job offers because of
Oh,
it. Um, but that being said, I feel like anytime someone does any like sort of like stunty kind of thing to get my attention, I'm so insanely annoyed. And I would hate if someone did that to me.
right.
So my advice is to just send somebody an email with a very simple link to your portfolio. Um, I think in terms of bridging the gap, I would say so. The Jardin's program was a 4-year program, which is a lot of years to go to study advertising. Ultimately got a degree, which is nice, but you can discuss you can study the whole of human history in like 4 years, not just advertising. So it was anyways, towards the last year of that program, I kind of just really became obsessed with the industry, and I think just reading all the trade press every day, Ad Age and Ad Week and Strategy, and really just keeping tabs on what the really good agencies that who did a lot of work that I admired, finding out who actually created, what was the creative team on that work. And then when there were specific pieces I really liked, I would just reach out to the creatives, not even the CCOs or the CDs, just like the creatives, and ask them if they could review my portfolio, or if I could, take them out for coffee for 20 minutes just to sort of like, get even just go to their office and just like, meet them or something like that. Just sort of, I guess, I don't know, spread my face around town. And then I would kind of end those meetings with asking, how do I get an internship? Da, 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 da. So it was a kind of mixture of things. I did that to a ton of agencies and met a ton of people and tried to do as many events like this as humanly possible. And then I also and then also kind of pulled that like stunt at the Bessies. But I couldn't have been able to get a job unless I had equally worked on my portfolio really, really hard. And I think right now it's easier than ever to build a really easy to navigate online portfolio, whether it's using Wix or Adobe Portfolio or Squarespace or Simply. I know there's a lot of them. So
Mhm.
I honestly think the first like way to like really like bridge that gap is to have a really, really good website with whether you're a designer, whether you're in motion graphics, whatever your background is, and have like kind of 4 or 5 different projects that really show how good you are. Because no one is gonna like, bring you in for an internship or a interview or anything like that unless your work is really good. And then a lot of times at that point, people have seen your work and they reviewed your website. And then when they, want to meet you, it's a little bit more of like is this person a nice, normal, kind of smart person that can talk through their work that is able to present well, and it just seems like, a lot of times is I think agencies are looking for young people who are going to bring energy and kind of, people that are really in touch with culture. So I think those interviews and stuff like that are more about proving all that kind of stuff. But you can't get that there unless you have a portfolio of work that is really, really strong.
So
Um,
the portfolio opens the door.
the portfolio opens
Oh
the
yeah.
door. Yes, and I think what's great about this like school is it gives you the time to develop a portfolio where as much as like I don't remember any of the marks I got in school, whether I got an A or a B or whatever, but I remember just like, hopefully after the several years at school, I had sort of 4 or 5 like really strong projects that were, and for our background, it was advertising. So 4 or 5 different advertising campaigns that were really, really strong, that showed I was a writer, so showed really, really good writing chops, and different tones too. Some were funny, some were serious. Um, and what I think was great about it would just give you a year or two to just like really
Mhm.
build your website and build your. That's what I think about school, not necessarily like the essays I was writing, but how I was working to build that
Right.
portfolio.
Can I add something short to that actually? And one interesting thing I think when we were building out our portfolio, we do school projects. Um, and something interesting that happens is that when we see books or portfolio, it's kind of the same projects that people present because it's what was assigned to them. Like you'd see like 4 ads for Kellogg's from different teams. And one thing that Jesse and I did is actually we kind of created other pieces outside of school so that when people were reviewing our portfolio, it was different than what they've seen from other students. And I think that really helped us stand out a lot. Yes.
And Jasmine, what about you? What was your experience in your portfolio creation? Um, Seemingly that I'm asking because as a designer, you would have had to have a book.
Yeah. Also, just one note, my fire alarm is being tested today. So if you hear that or if I have to mute myself, that's why. But I'll try to go quickly. But yeah, I think during school we had a class called Professional Practice, and that's a class where we were prompted to work on our resume, our cover letters, our portfolios, our websites, etc. And that was a really helpful course that prepared everyone to go out into the industry once they were finished school. But in terms of preparing my portfolio, I would agree with the sentiment that Gerardo had said with putting personal projects or self-initiated projects. I think that's what really helps you stand out. When I got my first job, I was fortunate enough to be reached out to by a couple of studios, and for that, I had that opportunity because I had put my work out. I was active on social media. I was cold emailing a lot of people, asking them for coffee chats. And then once my work was out there, and my face was out there and people kind of knew me, that's when I would get them to look at my work. And what stood out was definitely that my personal projects for the job that I have now. That's still to this day one that my creative director always references because that was the most memorable. And I would also say I agree with Jesse's remarks on being a good person. I think like when you see that a person has good work, it really matters if that's a good person that you would want to work with. So I would say working on both your talents and your skill, but also your soft skills and your professionalism and learning how to kind of manage that. It's hard to navigate that as someone who's in school or as a recent grad, but I think it's definitely something worth also getting feedback on aside from your portfolio, and would also recommend when reaching out for coffee chats or cold emailing, don't do it with the expectation of getting a job or asking for a job, but rather just building a connection with someone in the industry because in at least in design, it's really based off of like word of mouth and connections that you make with people and expanding your network. So I would say doing that and maybe even getting someone to look at your portfolio and ask for feedback is one way to get your work out there and also get to know other people and expand your network.
Okay.
My alarm didn't go off. Thank you.
Okay. Gabriel, just because you're from Quebec, you went to university, was your transition from Concordia to your first job any different? Like, what did you have to do to take that leap from in the classroom to the workforce
You know
or
what?
the workplace?
This is actually probably my biggest the biggest critic I have towards the program, the BFA that I did, is that yeah, I was definitely ill prepared to enter my professional life. Once I graduated, we put a lot of effort into making this great you know independent film as our graduating project, and then there was nothing, you know. So it was really brutal. I didn't know where to start at all. So I figured I'd do freelance. So I rented an office and I had a real telephone, the real line, a cord that went into a wall. And so I came in on Monday mornings and sat beside the phone and like a cartoon, just waited for this unknown number to dialed by someone and called, and nobody ever did. So yeah, I agree with what my co-panelists are saying. What you have to do is reach out and be active. Find the events that are going on in the field that interests you, and get out there. You know, it's good to build a nice portfolio, but it's not worth much if
Yeah.
nobody sees it, right? Um, so yeah, I reached out to a lot of people, and eventually I landed like a job in another agency that was like the lowest job in the food chain that was available to me at that point. But I just clawed my way up to an art direction role, and from there it was like a much better point to kick off the second phase of my freelance career that I've been pursuing for about 6 years. And what I will say about reaching out is I remember I used to be mortified at um when because oftentimes people are not going to answer to cold calls, and I used to be really shy about I don't have the English word for that, but like emailing them again, like,
Follow up?
hey, did you
Like
see
a
my email?
Yeah.
Yeah, follow up to a dead email, and yeah, I think like people are very open to that. I mean, everybody's busy, and it happens to everybody to miss an email. So following up on an email you didn't get an answer to just shows like your interest and how dedicated you are to contacting that person. But it also shows that you're organized and that you know who's answering to you and who's not. Um, yeah, another thing I will say is that a great opportunity to build your portfolio when you get out of school, because I agree with what Gerardo said. Um, people that are freshly out of school, their portfolio tends to be similar to one another. What I still do is once a year I try to work for a volunteer cause. So I'll try to identify an organism that it's clear that they need help with their branding, or anything really that I could provide help with, and that it's clear too that they don't really have the means to pay an agency to do that work. And so it's a good opportunity for us to like build our portfolio, because of course if we're gonna work for free for you, then we're gonna negotiate a lot of creative liberty. in exchange. And yeah, we try to focus on organisms that will provide some good visibility for us. So it really helped me build my portfolio early on, and it's a practice that we keep active still now. Like oftentimes it's not gonna be for free. Maybe it's an exchange of services. Like there was this nice conference that I really wanted to attend in September, so we did the intro video for them, and I could bring my whole staff to the venue. So that was great.
Oh, beautiful.
Thing I'll say about building your portfolio is, especially if you want to do some freelance, um, I'd recommend focusing on one skill and showing that you really master this one skill. I remember out of school, I was trying to show that I was good at everything, but what happens, the risk of doing that is that you might show that you're average at everything. But when we hire freelance, we hire them for one specific task, and we want to make sure that they can nail them because we have clients that are breathing down our necks and that we want to make sure we deliver quality work to them. So yeah, it's rare that we take risks on the freelance we hire. We want to be really sure that they can nail the specific task if we choose to hire them. Yeah.
So we've chatted about our experience at school, the transition from school to the workplace. Now I'm wondering if you can tell me about your typical day. And what do you like, what kind of skills do you need or do you put into practice most often in your typical day? Jasmine, you're nodding, so I'm going to start with you.
Okay.
I'm going to pass you the
Okay, thank you.
mic.
Yeah. I think with me, I've had experiences where right now I'm working entirely remote, but I've also worked in a studio before where we were hybrid. So I would go in and see my team twice a week, and the rest of the time I was working from home. But I'll go into those experiences separately. So currently, working from home, my team is based in New York, so and a couple of people are based outside of that in Europe. So we usually have a set time every morning where we would do a status call, so and also get feedback. So every day around like 9:30, we hop on a call, go through projects, go through what's kind of happening for the team and the business, and then also get feedback from my creative directors and work through some things and also go through our tasks for the day or for the week. I have these meetings every day, which is not something that every studio does, but because we work in different time zones, this is the only time that we are able to meet. So yeah, I have a meeting every day, and then the rest of the day is really up to my own schedule, and I'm able to manage my own time. So sometimes when I need to go to an appointment or do something like this, for instance, I'm able to step away from my computer and just like catch up later. You have to be really good at managing your time, in which I'm sometimes not. But I'm really glad to have that flexibility and to be able to, live my life as an adult, but also, be accountable to the job that I'm working at. Um, I think what's more common is the experience that I had at a studio where I was hybrid, where we would have a status meeting usually once or twice a week, and then the rest of the time we're working independently, but still checking in more frequently with my managers and with my creative directors, and then with the rest of my team, just being in person. So I think those are slightly probably more common. And in terms of applying the skills that I learned in school and what my kind of day-to-day aside from those meetings look like is so for me, I studied graphic design, but then my second degree was for brand strategy. So I think when working with identities in particular, or projects that require that bit of research, that's where I'm able to apply things that I've learned and also introduce things to my team that they aren't as familiar with, like strategic strategy or strategic planning and stuff like that, where we're able to kind of start with research, start with a plan before going into the design development. Um, I tend to work on maybe 4
Mhm.
projects at a time. The industry is a lot more fast-paced than it is in school. And sometimes those are a mix of like 2 projects that are like longer term, 2 that are things that just need like a couple of revisions to, or like quick edits to. So, or sometimes it's all 4 that are just quick projects, or all 4 that are longer term projects. So it really depends on kind of what the studio is, what the clients are currently are. But usually it's kind of a mix of both. In which, yeah, I just like keeping in touch with my team and seeing like what is due and when and how I would need support. But generally, it's a very creative process that I get to work on independently, and bring my expertise to the table while also learning from the other people on my team.
Okay. So is it difficult um, to have that regular, day-to-day talk by the water cooler kind of thing? Do you miss that
I do
in?
actually, but I think it kind of prompts you to find community and connection elsewhere. So, well, I've been able to visit my team in New York, and be able to meet them and like get to know them. And we try to have or build a culture through working remotely,
Mhm.
through sharing a bit about ourselves, or sharing like that water cooler talk or what's happening in our lives. But when we are very like isolated and we're working independently on our own time, and we aren't able to just talk across the table to chat with somebody. What I do is I'm in touch with a lot of my friends from design school. My best friend, she like lives across the street from me, so and is also a designer. So we will go to get a coffee and work together, or work from each other's places, and that kind of builds that sense of community and connection that I feel I miss sometimes when working remotely. But I think every place is also different, and you might have more check-ins with other places that work entirely remotely.
Mhm. Mhm. Very interesting. Interesting like evolution in the workplace.
Yeah.
But now what piques my curiosity is the day-to-day relationship that Jesse and Gerardo have, because you guys are in each other's pockets. Um, you're with each other 24/7,
15
365,
years straight.
A little
15 years straight, and you haven't,
15.
and you still like each other.
No, no,
So
we're
Not on Tuesdays. Yeah, not on Tuesdays.
yes, yeah. So tell us a little bit about the relationship that a creative team has with each other. For any of the of our prospects that are wanting to go either, into art direction or copywriting or anything else where you have a partner that you're working
I mean, no
with.
matter what your, I think, role is in this industry in the creative side, you're always working in teams together, like constantly. You're very, I think, rarely like kind of like a lone wolf. Um, I think all the time, whether it's account people or, so oftentimes Gerard and I will work with designers and motion graphics or editors and directors and stuff like that. So no matter what your role in this industry is, I think you're always part of a team and you're always working really close with people. So being able to work with people is probably one of the most important skills that you can possibly have. I think for creative teams specifically, it's even more intense because yeah, my day starts and I'm texting Gerardo, oh hey, I just sent an idea for something, or he's texted me that, and they kind of and the days end with that. And then in addition to that, you're also kind of like, for us, we've been partners a long time, so you're also navigating many of life's changes. Like we've moved agencies together, we moved away from Toronto for a long time, so you're also kind of weathering all of those kind of potential hurdles and stuff like that. So I think if you're working in a team, I think both, being sort of clear about what your dream, what your goals are, career wise, and kind of being on the same page, I think is really, really important. I know creative teams that are like, they want to do their like 1 or 2 good pieces a year and then, go home at 5 every day and like have a kind of normal and like,
Nothing wrong with that.
nothing, and there's nothing wrong with that. I do think like what Gerard, I guess, have lucked out is we're both kind of wanted to really, I think, and it's sort of ebb and flows because I think we have had times specifically during COVID where we both actually did take our foot off the gas a little bit and like kind of chill a little bit more. But I think be on the same page about what your career goals are. What do we want to accomplish this year? I think having a similar sort of like work ethic also is really important. Like, you don't want one person in a team to be like always like kind of in the trenches working hard while the other person is sort of chilling. So I think having a similar work ethic, having similar goals. I also think it's important to, what's worked for us, and I know other creative teams are actually opposite, is just as we have very similar taste. We typically in culture and movies and music and ads and design, we like the same things. So we almost have this like kind of shorthand, which I think allows us to communicate really quickly where we're like, oh, what if we did something that was kind of like, that type of thing. And we both like know what we mean. So it allows us to work, I think, really efficiently. And we have very similar tastes and interests. I do think, but on the other hand, the flip side of that, and I know creative teams that are wildly, wildly different and they get along well because they're kind of like a little bit of like a yin and yang, and they both bring really different things to the table. But I think personally for us, just when I see something like out in the world that I really, really love, like, and I'll send it to Gerard, and I'm like, I know he's gonna like love this too. We very rarely like differ on what we think good work is. So I think that's really important. And then just kind of knowing when, if you're getting on someone's nerves, when to,
Yeah.
just kind of back off a
Yeah.
little, I think is also an important skill. But regardless, if you're a creative and you're working in a creative team, or you are a designer or an editor or whatever you're in this field, I think being able to like work with people is a really, really important skill. And I think something that you develop sometimes a little bit over time where there's things that people say and then there's like the subtext behind that, and being able to decipher that and work well with people is a really important skill.
Okay. Gerardo, from your perspective, can you echo what Jesse said, or are you I know you're symbiotic, but like
No, I
where
totally agree. I totally agree. And I think he touched on it. I think one thing that we really share is we kind of have the same drive, so like when I'm, not pushing myself, he's there to push me. So that kind of always helps out. And at the same time, when we're both tired, we know when to chill. But I think one key thing for me for working as a creative team that I actually really like, we often interview together.
Oh.
And I feel like you never do that with other jobs. And that's something very interesting when we come in because, a lot of when we chat with kind of ECDs or CCOs, we go in as duo, but we are able to still provide different perspective, because he always attacking it from like a copywriter perspective. I'm art director by trade, so there's still always kind of things that we bring separately. But again, I think because we've been working together for so long, we can kind of package that up so it's kind of one thing, which really works well for us.
What happens when you know you, you don't want to one of you doesn't want to move to San Francisco, or one of you doesn't have as good of a day at an interview? How are those kinds of very plausible experiences reconciled?
I think it's just conversations. So a lot of what we do all day, to be honest, is just talk. Like we talk together, we communicate because that's how we kind of come up with ideas, right? It's just about through chatting or communication. So that's a very big part of our day is just to kind of talk and know where each other's at. So like for example, if we got a job offer and moving to New York, it's not an option. It's a thing we will weigh, like do I want to do this experience as alone and find a different partner? Maybe, but I think it would suck, So you kind of have to kind of weigh your options a little bit. But again, I think we've had such a similar goals together. So when we do get an offer here and there, and we would talk about if it aligns with ultimately what we wanted to do in the future.
Very lucky that you found each other.
Yeah. I guess we're lucky that we haven't had
Yeah.
too many of those hurdles. I think for a minute I was wanting us to move to Vancouver for a little bit, which I think would have not been a good
Yeah.
You
I absolutely said
you
no.
you talked me off that ledge, which I think was a good was ultimately I'm glad we didn't do that. But
Mhm.
we've been lucky. We haven't had too many of those kind
Yeah.
of situations.
So if as we're approaching like the end of this panel, I just wonder if one of the final questions that perhaps you guys can address is if you can talk a little bit about what you love the most and what you dislike about your everyday life in
Mhm.
your career.
I think there are good days and there are bad days, and I always try to remind myself that we're very, very lucky to be able to have a career where you create. And I think that's a very special thing to have, especially like, I don't know, for our generation. Like we're creating things for a living. And I think that's something very magical. So whenever I have a bad day, I try to remind myself of like, man, I've had other jobs where I truly didn't enjoy just because, again, I think I'm trying to, I love design, I love art direction, and there's not a lot of jobs out there where you can make a good living doing those stuff. And I think, again, we stumbled upon an industry where we got to work with like designers, we get to work with directors, sometimes rub elbows with like famous people when you work with them. So I think that's a very, very special thing that we have here. So again, I think I'm just honestly very thankful, and that's what I love about this industry is where I'm able to do the things that I like. Obviously, there's a lot of annoying things that comes with it, but so is everything else. Every there's always things that is not good. It's actually Judy John. I heard Judy John say this quote one time that it's never greener on the other side, and I think that really stuck with me. Because when you're at a place, you're like, oh, I bet if I worked there, I'd be happier. And sometimes no, it's like you kind of make your own world in a way. And I think that's what Jesse and I try to do here.
Okay.
Mhm. Speaking of working with famous people, Matty Matheson is walking
Oh,
around somewhere
really?
around here
Yeah.
because we're about to shoot a commercial with him tomorrow. So they're
Oh,
doing wardrobes somewhere here.
fantastic. That's it.
I'll, I would say two things that are my favorite things. I think one thing is what I love about this job is I feel like I'm always watching movies or reading books and just being exposed to different kind of media. And I like the idea of being able to apply all these different like sort of sources that you're taking in. A lot of times like, oh, I saw a cool font on a flyer for a show, and I'll take a picture of it for drawing. Like, we should use this for something. I don't know. But I love the idea of like or watching a movie. I'm like, oh, I love that shot that they where they like went in like this. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna like bookmark that and use that in some type of way. So I love the idea of working a job where all the things that I absorb because I love movies and I love music and I love books and I love design and I love all these things. I like being able to actually take all that in and be able to apply it to what I do for a living. And the second thing is I think is the people. Like there's such a fun industry. There's so many cool people. So many of my really good friends have become just like editors that we've worked with or directors we've worked with or just people at different agencies. So much of my like social group is just people within this industry in a really like kind of like fun way where I've found just so many people that I really genuinely like through this
Mhm.
this career. My wife always jokes I'm like the mayor of Toronto because when I'm walking out in
You
the street,
know
I'm like,
everyone.
I just know so many people just because you meet so many people in this industry. So I can hardly go a block without running into someone that I just worked with on a shoot or something like that. So those are two things I really love. I think the and Jasmine touched on earlier. I think what the tricky thing is there's always pressure on you and you're always working on many, many different projects at once. There's very rarely where we have a day where all right, all day we're going to brainstorm on something. It's like, no, I'm walking in between from one meeting to another 50 minutes trying to crack a script for something like that. So I think the pace is tough. I think like we've gotten so used to it that it just feels like another day. But I remember that was something that was a bit difficult to adjust to, being like,
Right.
oh, at school you had this one project and it was the one project keeping you up at night and working hard on that. And then and you'd be like, well, try doing 14 of
Yeah.
them at once. But you do
Yeah.
you do kind of learn how to adjust and know where to
Mhm.
concentrate your efforts at sort of different timelines. So, but I think that's always a bit of a moving target. So I think that would be yeah, that's one of the difficult things.
Gabriel, what about you?
Yeah, well, there's lots of things to love about our job, but I think the part I like the most is the storytelling. I really find that it's a privilege that we have that the client lets us tell their stories uh, together or in their place. Um, so yeah, it's really a part of the job I enjoy the most, and I often find myself thriving on this type of project that don't really call for storytelling. Like we could take for example a really corporate piece, but in the end we're a tribal species and we need to have a story be told to us at all times, even if we're talking numbers and technical stuff. So yeah, I really enjoy finding a way to turn boring data into a story that's compelling and engaging.
Mhm.
So that's yeah, definitely a part of my job I really enjoy nowadays. And yeah, the downsides, I think, yeah, the guys touch on it. The pace is definitely sometimes hard to keep up with. And there's also like all the screen time that gets that sort of wears you out, and you need to be cautious about that for sure. But yeah, one thing I'll touch on is I've sort of broke away from that recently because I found in my studio, but in the freelance lifestyle, the loneliness is kind of the biggest
Right.
downside. And for sure, like in the beginning, renting a spot in a co-working place can look like a really big expense. But if you manage to find a spot where there's many people that work in your field that work in the same place, I find it's a very, very smart investment.
Mhm.
Just like the privilege of having a fresh set of eyes take a look at your work and having a second opinion on something you're working on, just that is priceless. But also like the possibility to refer a client to a colleague and vice versa. I tend to really uh, I don't want to leave my clients hanging when I'm
Right.
not available for them. So I'm always happy to have some solution for them. And I think it's if you work that way, the opportunities are gonna come back your way for sure.
Mhm.
So yeah.
And Jasmine, I saw you nodding when
Mm.
the word loneliness was
Yeah.
mentioned.
Yeah, I think that's I'll get to kind of what I think is downsides, but I think there's a lot to love about being a creative and getting to, do what you love. And it's something that I love to live by. It's just like if you love what you do, like you're never gonna feel like it's actually work. And going into pursuing my passion, I think really helped bring a lot of fulfillment to my life, and felt like an outlet where I can be creative in a way that I can express myself and have fun doing what I want. Touching on a point that was made earlier about like volunteering, I think like a lot of what I did in high school is just like volunteering to do posters and doing, yeah, just because I found it fun and a way to express myself and also reach out to people in my community. Um, so I think like the biggest pro is that, yeah, you get to make a living doing what you love, but and pursuing your passion. But the downside of that is burnout. I think like when you're really passionate about something and you like for myself, I tend to overstep my own boundaries with time or like working late
Mhm.
and maybe not managing my time very well. So I think like those are part of the downsides, aside from like, yeah, when you're working remotely, there's a bit of loneliness, but if you're able to reach out to people in your network and, or even like friends or go to a co-working space like Gabriel has said. I think that's kind of what helps fight the loneliness. But yeah, I think for
Right.
sure taking care of yourself is important while being a creative and replenishing your kind of creative battery and also your well-being is super
Mhm.
important.
Um, so thank you for that, firstly. And um, we've got about 5 minutes left. And one of my last questions was about the where the industry is going. But we have a question that has come from an attendee that kind of parlays into that. And the question is, and I'll read it to you as it was articulated by the attendee just to capture its essence, was hearing lots of things about AI eliminating many entry-level jobs. Number one, do you use AI in your role? And number two, so two-part question, how is it best to prepare for entering a career with this AI cloud hanging overhead?
It's a good,
Uh,
Interesting.
good
yeah, that's a great question. Yep. You want to go?
yeah, I mean, I'd say we use it a lot here and there. A lot of the stuff for like sort of what we call sometimes cultural mining. Like, I'm just going to use I'm just going to make up an example. I'm just going to say we're working on like
Kit Kat.
Kit Kat, and I want to find out any sort of songs that the chocolate bar Kit Kat has ever been mentioned in. It's a lot easier to look that up on like ChatGPT and stuff than Google. So we use it a lot for like almost like research purposes like that. There has been other times where, okay, I'm writing a script. I was working on Rona and I had a script. One of the jokes was like about all this technical jargon, like that, like builders use. So I like kind of was working on this script and like putting it through this filter of like, all right, add as many sort of like, if you know type of construction language, like into this sort of like blurb. And it was really good at doing that. In terms of eliminating like jobs and positions, I think I can only really speak for Courage. Thing we've hired a ton of young people in the last year and a half. So I think we're probably an agency where it hasn't eliminated any roles. I think when you think of it eliminating roles, you see these headlines in the news. I think it's more like large scale stuff, like giant corporations like J.P. Morgan and Amazon, and like those type of companies that operate at such a massive scale. I think of like creative boutiques and stuff like that. I'm hopeful that it will not affect it as much. I think a lot of times we were reading like kind of these like horrifying headlines about how AI is going to like transform the world. We apply it to our own like world, like our own industry, like how like I saw Coca-Cola just released a commercial with AI where they didn't hire a director and stuff like that. But I think AI, if AI becomes as big of a transformational kind of thing in life that I guess Sam Altman and some of these like people say, it's not just like our like commercial industry that's going to be disrupted. I think so many facets of life are going to change that worrying about the way they affect the commercial industry and design industry is going to seem almost like sort of myopic compared to some of the like large scale ways society might change. So on one hand, I try not to think about it too much. I got into this career because I love crafting beautiful words and creating beautiful things. And if the world doesn't want that anymore, then I don't
You're
know.
out.
I'll go be a realtor or no,
Yeah.
probably wouldn't last long that. But I don't know. I'd just go do something else. It really changes where it takes everything that we're good at and that the humanity that we try to inject into our work. And if society deems they don't want that anymore, then I don't know.
I think just to add to that, sorry, we're getting kicked out of room. Um, I think AI, we use it for research, but I think what my advice would be is learn how to use it, but don't expect it to think for you. Because I think at the end of the day, that's what we can bring, right? We're brains. We think of ideas. So you can kind of use it here and there, learn how to use it, but if you're using it to think for you, then I think we've already lost.
Right. Very good.
Oh, yeah, bouncing on that, I think the only thing we can do for now is still stay curious and stay up to date. It's hard to predict where the future will take us with this technology, but yeah, I think to succeed in this field, it's expecting from us to be curious about lots of things. So try to leave some room in your curiosity for AI because uh, whether it's coming in one way or another, it's definitely coming. And there's still like a, a lot of creative opportunity to use these tools, and it can take a project to some place you could never expect a few years ago. So yeah, I tend to force myself to try to incorporate it in my workflow because yeah, it's just gonna help me keep up to date with these technologies that are evolving so fast.
To echo that, I think it definitely using it as a tool and being acquainted with it and implementing it to your work is um, is kind of the day and age that we live in now. And I think, yeah, using it as a tool and something to amplify your work is more so important than using it to replace your own work. I personally use AI mostly in when writing emails, but in the off chance that like I'm using it to help generate an idea, um, not using it word for word or not using it verbatim the way that it was created. I think putting your own touch on things and editing it and using your brain, like Jesse said, is important when using it as a tool. Not being afraid of it, but rather embracing it and making it work for you rather than submitting to that. And then preparing for a career with AI in mind, I think, yeah, embracing that as a skill is pretty key. Um, Instead of just saying like, oh, that's it for me, AI is going to take over my job. I think there's a long way for it to go. And, there's all of these new features, especially in design and illustration, I would say, that are utilizing AI and kind of advertising themselves as like tools to like help anyone create. But I think what really comes down to it and what AI can't replicate is your own creative ideas and the strategies behind it and the personal flair, empathy, especially when creating a solution for a problem that your client has. I think those are things that can't be replaced.
Okay. So one last question. Apart from AI, what else do you see coming down the pipe in the next few years? Bearing in mind that we're talking to students who are looking to enter this industry, in sometime in the near future. Was other than AI, what else do you see coming down the pipe in the next few years? Only because like this is, we have students here who are looking at this as a career opportunity. So,
Yeah,
anything that
I,
they should bear in mind.
I can speak for my field, which is animation. Um, we've seen a slowing down in the demand for traditional media, but I think that's a feeling that pretty much every field can confirm this is a general tendency. So in my field, that means television and cinema. There's sort of a bit less demand for what typically was a natural like a place to focus on for animation. Recently, we've noticed a lot of demand for experience creation. So it's immersive experience in museums, it's VR experiences, um, shows, anything that you would experiment live rather than alone in front of a screen. We witnessed like a lot of demand for that, but we feel like it's a very emerging field and kind of young field where there's a lot of hunger for new ideas, and there's a lot of opportunity to be creative because this too is it seems like the technology is evolving really fast, so it's like constantly new ways to get creative with these new tools. So yeah, we've been focusing a lot on that in animation recently.
Okay.
For myself, I think if you're a student going into this field, I think prepared for it to be a bit competitive, as all industries are. But I think in order to really stand out, you can't really wait for opportunities to come to you. You have to go out and reach for them um, and just know that like, there's so many other people coming from school applying to the same job. There's a lot of people applying for junior entry positions. So you really have to kind of put yourself out there and be able to offer something that other people may not have. I think that's kind of how I got my start, whether that was like volunteering or like offering to do social media, doing things that are helpful to wherever you're applying and they'll help you stand out. One thing, especially, I think what has helped me get the jobs that I've had is asking during interviews, what are the studios or the agencies' goals, and how can I be part of helping you to reach those goals? How can I support in that way? So I think that's something that always stands out to employers, and yeah, just like continuing to do what you do and be as best as you can at it, and reaching out for those opportunities. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. So I think we've drawn pretty much to an end. What advice would you give designers who aren't recent grads but have progressed far in their professional creative years? How can they stay motivated while navigating the job market and changes in the design industry?
I think, like speaking as a designer, it is pretty tough, and being open to any opportunities that are out there, just to kind of get your foot in the door, is really helpful. I think seeing it as an opportunity to work on the things that you love and have fun with it, because I feel like now having a job, I never have time for my own personal work. And that's really what I want to get back to. And I think when applying for jobs, showing that personal work that you've done is, again, what stands out to them, and is can be fulfilling for you as well. And just know that I feel like everyone is kind of in the same boat, and there's no need to like compare yourself to anyone who may have a job, or who like someone else who's also struggling. I think we can all find support in this industry together, and like the right thing will come at the right time, but also be open to whatever might come your way.
Mhm.
But it's hard, and just like leaning on other people for that support.